investigators went to interview Peterson about the child abuse allegations in Texas in July, they took pictures. Police say Peterson demonstrated to them the kind of switch he used on his 4-year-old son and how he first removes the leaves. Police say the punishment happened in May. That's when Adrian Peterson's son visited him at his home near Houston. While Skyping with his mom back in Minnesota, she told police her son asked if he could tell her something. Adrian Peterson said, "Go ahead and tell her and show her what happened." The boy said he got a whooping with a switch. Peterson said the boy was punished because he used bad words, pushed a kid off a bike, and put a pillow over another child's face. 3 days later, Adrian's son flew back to be with his mom in Eden Prairie. She took him straight to a doctor. The doctor who checked Peterson's son later told investigators the boy had about 10 cuts on his thighs, bruise-like marks on his lower back and buttocks, along with cuts on his hands. The doctor described some of the marks as open wounds and clinically diagnostic of child physical abuse. The police reports also have a copy of a text message conversation between Peterson and the boy's mother. In one text about the punishment, Peterson says he got about 5 more pops than normal. He didn't drop 1 tear. So that was another indicator I'll have to try a system with him. Shaking my head. He's tough as nails. A grand jury seated earlier this summer decided not to charge Peterson with a crime, but a new group of jurors yesterday did charge Peterson with reckless or negligent injury to a child. If he's convicted, he could face up to 2 years in jail. A statement from Adrian Peterson's attorney said his client used the same kind of discipline with his child that he experienced as a child growing up in East Texas, adding that Adrian never intended to harm his son and deeply regrets the unintentional injury.
I believe kids deserve spankings. It's just a lot that goes on with kids that foster workers or social services don't understand when it comes to kids. There are parents out here who do abuse their kids and who deserve certain punishments. But there's parents out here who don't abuse their kids, who only spanks them out of love because they want better for their kids. A lot of us Black people who live in the poor communities don't want our kids growing up dealing drugs, hanging out on the streets, getting felonies, or getting a criminal record. And that's our way of disciplining them, showing them that we love them, showing them that what they're doing is wrong. They have to learn right from wrong.
All right. I guess you've already heard what anyone is saying around town, and welcome to Around Town with Garry Callis. Let me introduce you to my guests. I have Tracy. I have Teaching. Ladies, we're not going to play around with this thing. Adrian Peterson just got charged $4,000, 80 hours of community service work, assault for spanking his son. What do y'all think? Spanking your kids, right? Wrong? Tracy, what you think?
I think it's ridiculous. I come from spankings. Okay, it's part of our culture, first of all. It's only these new age generation moms, no offense, but that don't believe in it. There's a fine line, I understand, between child abuse and spanking. But like you and I were talking off the camera, think about it like this. It's a disrespect to his heritage that you find a man for what was been poured into him his entire life. We discipline our children how we were disciplined. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Okay, if you come from a household where it was okay to be spanked, that's the discipline that you know. And let's just keep it real. Some of these kids is out of control. Tapping that behind is sometimes the only thing. Forget time out and talking and all of that, and all that stuff, or whatever. See, back in the days, my mom had the look. So she didn't have to get a whole lot of spankings because we already knew once she gave a look, that was it. But now you got kids, just think that the government is too involved in how we discipline our children.
Okay. What do you think, Teach?
I'm almost in line with that. Coming from a household where spanking was the norm, I appreciated it. But then, like you said, trying to keep up with the times, thought, well, maybe I'll give my children time out. I think there's a time when children, you've got to tap their booties. You have to tap their booties, and especially when they're younger, so that you don't have to do it when they're older, and it's then characterized as assaulting the child. It's then really taken out of context. It has been part of our discipline. Now, I'd like to spin it a little bit, though, because when we talk about the children being out of control, I would say that those are probably the children you don't want to hit. You do not want to spank those children. Those are the children that this time out, they need some talking to. You're going to have to get into that brain, because for them, violence begets violence. So you hit them, they're gonna hit you back. So we've got to use it, or hit somebody. So we've got to get it in its context. And, you know, I think the Bible says it plainly.
7 rods for a child. Right.
I think that's enough said.
I think that's okay.
You know, I think it's kind of funny because Adrian Peterson basically goes through all this because he would have got a switch, and they call it a tree limb in the news, right? When he got a switch, inspecting his son. I know for a fact that if they were to go back and get my parents, the people that live next door to me, my grandma, everybody would have got locked up for child abuse. You know, but in the person, I think the real abuse is if you don't discipline and spank your children. It's a way for your kids to learn that there are consequences to their actions. You know what I'm saying? Like your kids go off and do something. You've already told them not to do whatever. They go off and they do it. But it's almost as if you don't punish them in a certain way, let them understand that there is a downside to not doing what I told you to do. They can just do what they want to do.
I agree.
You know? And I think that if we let our kids go that way, the only real discipline they end up seeing is that guy that's on that bench or that woman that's on that bench with that black robe on. And now they're trying to tell our kids it's time for you to go to jail because we didn't do our job. So again, I'm going to say this. So what are we going to learn? I mean,
I think, in piggyback, I agree with what my sister said, but even going further than that, let's talk about the involvement and the regulation. Since the dawning of time, we can look at governmental regulations that affect our village that don't necessarily apply to our village. We have regulations on weight control. If our children are a certain weight, they're overweight, but our frames are built differently. So now it just seems like when we started disciplining our children, it became an issue. Now, we've seen children out in the public that we already know that you just want to snatch up. I agree with her that violence begets violence, but there's a whole lot of people that I personally believe that is in the penal system right now that had someone grab the hold of them and tax that behind and show them a care. One of the things I remember is, I remember when I turned 20 years old, I remember thanking my mother. Okay, and she couldn't believe it, and I was like, I thank you, because I had girlfriends that never got spanked, okay, and could do whatever they wanted to do, and they ended up very young mothers. Some of them ended up strung out. I thank my mom for the discipline that she instilled in us. Okay, I thank her for that, because it to me, when we spank our children, it was out of love. Remember, our parents used to always say, "This is going to hurt me, or this is going to hurt you."
Right.
I mean, like, I don't know where you get that from, but okay, if it works for you, you know. But I mean, I think the extended part of that is, after the spanking, sit down and speak to that child and let them know why that was necessary, what warranted that behavior. I remember being a child, and I'm not going to tell my age, but I remember being a child where it was customary, if you acted the fool in school, you could get a spanking in school.
Girl, I have to tell you, we had a guy, one of our coaches used to have the board of education. And anytime we might step inside the school, the teachers would send us to this one particular coach, and the coach would take us back to the locker room, and the board of education came on, they had holes in it. And I honestly believe he was trying to get our meat to go through those holes. That guy wasn't playing. I think that society has just moved on so far to where now everybody has rights, the kids have rights, everybody has rights, and it's to the point now where the kids in certain cases seem to have more rights than we do. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I have 7 kids, right? And all my children will tell you that my parenting style over the last 30 some odd years have changed my oldest children to my youngest. But believe me when I tell you, when I go to this right here, my oldest, my youngest all know what's going on. Now here's what I have realized. When I was a younger dad, I used to walk around with a belt around my neck. I wish y'all would. You know what I'm saying? I wish y'all would. Right? And I was walking around with the belt around my neck as almost as if it was like a badge. You know, a right there. When you mess up, you know I'm coming straight to that booth. But here's what I would, and I want to go with you on this, Tracy, is that as I started to mature as a parent, I realized that my kids were a whole lot smarter than I thought they were. To where maybe the spanking wasn't necessary. Right. And as you're saying, maybe just get them that level, eye to eye, and we talk about what it is you're doing. And I'm hoping that when I explain to you what you did wrong, you won't do it again. Now, on the other side, if they did decide to, again, kids are supposed to push the envelope. They're supposed to see how far they can go. They're supposed to see what they can get away with. And it's only when we say no and put that and cut that thing off, no, you can't go there. No, you can't do that. Or this is going to happen.
Right.
But there's a consequence. But when I tell you that's going to happen, trust and believe, I'm not threatening you. That is what's going to happen.
But I think the other thing about that too is that when we were coming up at children, it sounds crazy, but there was a discipline protocol. And what I mean by that is that parents didn't spank you because they were mad, they were frustrated at work, their man left them, or bills were high, because then those end up being child abuse situations because you're venting that frustration on a child. So I just believe that if those same protocols and principles apply, where you might need to take that woosah moment and back up and, like you said, do that one-on-one, but then if I got to tax that behind, there's not a whole bunch of rage that's coming up behind that. I think that we really need to be careful. One of the things that I tell people is that when we come up with laws, we really have to watch how these laws and who they're meant to affect.
Yes.
Like, perfect example, we talk about the war on drugs. But all the war on drugs did was lock up our men. So now when we're starting to talk about disciplining people for disciplining their children, when this is something that we go, now we're talking about our men and women ending up in jail.
Because they didn't have the discipline.
Because they didn't have the discipline.
Right. So I tell you what, let's take a break right here. I knew this was going to be a hot topic. Look, we're going to take a break right here, and we're going to come right back. We're going to pick right up about again. Basically, not disciplining our kids ends up having them in jail. We'll talk about it when we come back.
Urban J Productions provides all of your videography needs for any occasion or project. We specialize in TV shows, weddings, commercials, documentaries, behind-the-scenes footage, music videos, interviews, corporate events, photo shoots, baby showers, sweet 16s, birthday parties, fashion shows, band reunions, and highlight reels. You name it, we can do it. Contact us today, 1-267-218-2181. We're available nationwide. We look forward to capturing your most cherished memories. Irvin J Productions.
Child Care and Learning Center at 1506 Hull Street is enrolling children 4 weeks to 12 years old. The safe and nurturing environment sets the stage for your lifetime learner. Call us at 233-4116, schedule a tour, and meet your teacher. Text as we grow to 72727 to pre-enroll and for your chance to win a free week of childcare. As We Grow Child Care and Learning Center, where we coined the phrase kindergarten ready.
Welcome back.
I don't think you should have to go through changes when you whoop your child, but at the same time, his child was 4 years old, so I don't think a child 4 years old should get hit with a switch, really. I just pop a 4-year-old, but I mean, it's not fair to him. The internet destroyed everything because it allowed a whole bunch of idiots with opinion to have opinions, so the internet's terrible.
Kill everything.
Right, because now everybody got opinion and they get to voice their opinion, and everybody don't have common sense. So that's why the internet is really, now everybody's commenting what other people do, but I mean, what about themselves? Most of the people that comment and making criticism.
All right. Boy, then again, like I said, this subject matter is tight. Before we went to break, we were talking about how the governors get involved, how they prohibit the parents from really getting involved in spanking their children, rearing their children away, basically the way we grew up. And now you were making a comment, Tracy, that you believe that that is actually leading to the incarceration of some of our young men. So,
I honestly do. I think you find that the majority of our young men that are incarcerated lack discipline. They lack any discipline, they lack any respect for authority or whatever. Think about when we were coming up, most of us, if we came from a single parent household, mommy was mommy and daddy, and she was the authoritative figure in that household. If you came from a household that was a dual household, mommy still was the authority figure. It was always wait till daddy get home, but mommy didn't play any games either. You mostly find that when you take these men and you interview those that's incarcerated, they don't have any discipline. They've been allowed to do whatever they want to do. You know, the funniest thing that I always share with people is my Aunt Ella was like 4 feet tall, and my cousin Larry was like 7'1".
okay, at 18 years old. And my aunt would actually climb on the step ladder and knock Larry out. Okay, literally. If he did anything out of control, it was the funniest thing when he knew, and to see a 7-foot young man stand there and let this 4-foot woman just come at him. But it was the respect and the thing. These guys get incarcerated and they don't respect COs, they don't respect judges. If you go to, I sit in some of the court systems because of the line of work that I do, and if you and I went to court for a ticket or something, there's a protocol. We already know how to stand, we already know how to respond, because that's instilled discipline within us. And I just honestly believe, now, do I believe that spanking is the only solution? No. Do I believe that spanking is the catch-all to everything that's going to happen? No. But I still firmly believe that a light tapping on the behind sometimes does more to, because I'm only going to talk once. That's always been my philosophy with mine. I'm talking one time. After that,
I get mine 3. The first time, I say it one time, the second time I think you didn't hear me. And then it's on after that. But you know, he was funny when you said, wait till your daddy get home. You know, teacher and I were talking a minute ago during the break. It was real funny because my mom used to pull that one on us. You know, she'd say, wait till your daddy get home. And my brother and I, when we heard that, wait till your daddy get home, that was the worst thing you could have said. Wait till, God. Wait till, so what we do? We took our bath early, we got in the bed early, but by the time Daddy got off, we didn't even want to see this cat, right? But you know what, here's the thing though, Dad didn't care like that. Dad came right in, Mom met him at the door, told him what happened. He comes right into the bedroom, cuts the lights on, pulls the sheets back, and just goes right to the hot table. The brother never asked me what happened. He didn't ask me my side or my take on it, you know? No, he just didn't go there at all. I'm like, man. So, I would agree with you 100% because, again, I work with children and have worked with children for years. And what I thought was funny is that when parents would send their kids to me, they would sign a contract. They would give me permission to whoop their kids' butt. That's right, parents. Parents write a contract. Now, here's the funny thing, is not only did the parent have to sign a contract, I made the kids sign a contract too. Why? Because they full well knew now that there are going to be consequences to your actions. We want to set up some rules, we have some parameters, that if you break these rules, these are the things that's going to happen. Now, did I have to exercise that often? No, I didn't. But what I found is the kids saw it as being, I was somebody, they knew they just couldn't play that game.
right.
So I will say that the spanking thing is a great deterrent. Is it the cure-all, as you're saying, Tracy? No, it's not. I agree with you on that. Is it something that, is it something I think that all parents should employ? No. Because everybody can't handle it. Because as we were saying earlier, some parents just don't seem to understand. You can't spank your children when you're angry.
That's right.
You know? And that's one of the problems that I had too is with, you know, I didn't mind the teachers having the ability to spank us when I was a kid. I didn't mind that because I knew they had our best interest at heart. But now the climate is just a little bit different where the teachers are not as dedicated. I'm not going to say the teachers aren't dedicated, but some of the teachers aren't as dedicated, you know? And they may come in, like you were saying, Tracy, with an attitude like, my husband just left me, something just crazy happened to me, my wife didn't cook dinner last night, and then he comes out of school when I take it out on my kids. So teacher, you know, I mean, what do you think? Is that something that...
Well, today, it's still in some of the school systems across the United States, they have forms of corporal punishment. Mm-hmm. Teachers and principals are allowed to whoop your children. Mm-hmm. And I am correct when I use the word whoop because they're using objects, mm-hmm. they're using their hands, it's very physical. But I think really at the root of all of this, especially when I think about African Americans, that some of this goes back to slavery. Some of it goes back to, what I even think about is, I just thought about the movie 12 Years a Slave, right. And how the white master made that black man beat the right. black woman. Right. In those circumstances, that's out of order. And when I say that, it goes back to, if you're angry, don't put your hands on the child. Right. If you're frustrated about something, no, don't put your hands on the child. But I promise you this, that in your children's formative years, you have got to tap that booty. As they get older, you will not have, I promise you, this lack of respect, this discipline, we've got to do a better job of molding our children when they are younger, so such that the government doesn't have to step in and tell us that we can't spank them.
Agreed.
So y'all think that all these shootings and things that are popping off? I mean, every time you turn around, you find out there's a shooting in some school, like the last guy. Can't think of the young boy's name, but he basically texted all his friends, told him to join him somewhere, took out a gun and just decided to start shooting at folks, right? Then you got things where other kids come inside the school because they're upset with something, and next thing you know, they walk through the school, shooting everybody. Do you think those things are because of lack of discipline inside the home, or just an overexertion or overindulgence in video
I think
games?
some of them is a mental imbalance.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that a lot of parents do a disservice is knowing that their child has an issue, but don't want to acknowledge that issue and get that child the help. And that's one of the worst things in the African American community. We don't want other people in our business, and because of that, we deprive our children of the resources that other nationalities take care of like psychiatry and those issues. So some of it is a chemical imbalance. But by the same token, some of these guys are, no one's going to tell me what to do. And the funniest thing, and I have to share this with you, because the funniest thing that I always thought, let's talk about like the Maury show. When they have the shows and the kids are on there and they're like really belligerent and the parents are crying and scared. We all know I'm that chick that's yelling at the TV. You can't freaking be kidding me. Because ain't nothing that I'm clothing and feeding I'm going to be afraid of. So now you've already instilled in this child that there's no discipline, there's no structure, there's no fear factor. I shared with you guys off of camera. It wasn't that my mom wanted us to fear her, but we respected her. So my mom didn't have to do a lot of talking. All she had to do was look at you, and you knew from how her eyebrow raised, so to speak, what she was saying. The other thing that I want to question to both of you is, think about this. Everybody's talking about Adrian Peterson. What message now did you send to that child? What message is that child now sitting in his room going, my dad got in trouble. He can't tell me what to do now. Because I've been in a situation, I've had a girlfriend whose son called the police on her after she spanked him. And when the cops came, she handed the cops his luggage and him. And the cops said, what are you doing? She said, oh no, because understand this, if he stay in this house, that booty gonna get taxed. Mm-hmm. So if the law says that I can't do that, I'm gonna need you to take him to your address.
But you know, the funny thing about this Adrian Peterson thing, though, it was a neighbor that basically made the call because she saw him whooping his child, and they made the phone call. Mm-hmm. So my thing is do you think that other people are overreacting when they're seeing you basically, reprimanding your child?
I think it's good that people get involved. And I think it's good that people pay attention, but I think people need to really learn all the facts first, okay? I think that a lot of people, I think that media, I think that has played a huge part in portraying. We know, unfortunately, child abuse exists, okay? I have a nephew dead today because of child abuse. So I'm aware that it exists. I know that it's out there, and I know that people are out there doing it. But we have to be very careful when we start can't say the word on TV, clustering these things together or whatever, because then it becomes a detriment. Or because now, in my mindset, and I'm angry about this, because now once again, you have another black man, another positive black man, that now has a criminal record full of foolishness. So if he was not in the NFL, once again, you would have another black man that would be disenfranchised from his family, would not be able to secure employment anywhere because he has a criminal record of abuse. It's ridiculous.
Again, I would say the same thing. If my parents or my grandparents have been involved, I live right next door to a guy that had weeping willow tree in his backyard. And y'all know how long those limbs were? Those look like virtual whips. And my mom would tell us to go outside and pick your own switch off the tree. And when you come back, you better put a small one back, and then she go get one.
Thank you.
I
remember those days.
I guess what it always comes to now is, in some cases, some folks just need to learn how to mind their own business. That's one. But the other side too, I guess if you see somebody abusing their child, say something, but should the police be the first person they call, or should they come to the person and say something to them first? What do you think?
I think it's a touchy situation because realistically, keep in mind, parents are younger, grandparents are younger. When we were children, If Ms. Jones seen us up the street acting a fool, Ms. Jones had full authority to chastise us and bring us back to our parents. And my mother never will look at Ms. Jones and go, did you do that? Or want to fight her. Now you say something to somebody's kids. You got schools, a lot of these schools are locked down strictly because kids tell their parents, teacher says something, mom comes in the car with a gang and wants to bum rush to school and beat up people. So it's a fine line. Maybe, just maybe, the government needs to develop a department for such as this, where each precinct has a person that this is solely what they deal with. And that person is dispatched out to mediate between the family and give their recommendation, like a CASA worker.
And the thing too, I think it's a matter of just parents becoming just more responsible when it comes to their kids.
And reasonable.
But the old saying was, it takes a village to raise a child.
That's right.
But the thing is, the village has now gotten sick.
Yeah, our village is broken.
You know,
Exactly.
I just saw, it was just a deal on TV the other day where a lady let her son go to the park and play. The park was maybe 4 houses down across the street from her house. One of the neighbors saw a little boy playing and called the police on him. Child Protective Services came and questioned the lady as to why was the child go by himself. But the whole thing is when do you allow your child to begin to explore, begin to do things? So I guess I think some folks just too controlling.
I think the government is too controlling. I think the government is too controlling in us rearing our child. I was a latchkey kid. Okay, I was a latchkey kid. I was home 2 hours before my mother got off from work, and I was the oldest. I was responsible to help my sister with her homework, get something out for dinner. When my mother normally came home, dinner was already cooked. And she reviewed over homework, bath was done, and we went to bed. And we grew up fine. I think somewhere along the line, the government got overly involved, media got overly involved. I'm sorry, I love my Caucasian brothers and sisters, but they got overly involved. And once again, to me, it's just another form of modern day slavery for you to dictate to us how we're going to raise our children and what our children are going to do, or what we are, what we can and cannot do. And because of that, this is why we have all of these issues and problems. I ain't never seen no kid back in my days complaining, my mom whipped me. Okay, because it was an expectation if you broke the rules.
You know what I think is funny is when you go to the grocery store, right? And see some kids on the floor just falling and flopping on the floor. I wish I would have thought about letting my mama hand go and flop and roll on the floor when she said no, whatever. We all know how that would have ended.
My son did that to me one time. I stepped over him and continued on shopping.
Yes.
Okay, when he looked up and seen that I wasn't there, he was like, wait a minute. Oh, okay, you got it together now?
Parents, if you're angry with them, don't put your hands on your kids. But I will tell you, in the right situation, every now and then you might have to do what you gotta do. This is Garry Callis from Around Town. I got Tracy, I got Teaching. Hey, we'll see you next time. Thanks.